Great.
Yeah, yeah.
Ronald, thank you for making time for me. How are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you too?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm very good.
Thank
What
you
would
for the great work.
Hmm?
Thank you for the great work you're doing that side.
Thank you. Thank you for the appreciation. We're trying to make
Mm,
a difference any way I can. I love that your broadcast is about peace because that's really
mm,
where I'm leaning. It's really where I'm leaning.
yeah. Mm.
Tell
I
me,
too love
come
the
again?
peace building. I too love the peace building.
Yes, yes. And I hope to, I hope to be able to see greater peace throughout the world in our lifetime. I believe that we will be able to achieve that. I uh,
Mm,
I might be one of the few, but I feel you're one of those as well. So I look forward to it. Let me
yeah.
just bear with me a second. I'm just going to adjust my AirPod. Hmm, There we go. All right, I'm all set now.
Mm.
Okay. So what would you like to discuss first?
First, I'm so thankful for your positive response to arrange today's Zoom meeting. It's a challenge for us this side because of internet challenges. We are in remote areas where the internet is hard to access, and getting data is also costly. So you devise possible means you can travel, reach a town where possibly the network is a bit okay, and then you link up from there. So it's where I am right now, and I'm happy for the autism children you are trying to create peace for, to see that they also enjoy life. Uh, so many people forget children with such challenges in their life. And in Africa, in most of our areas, they are neglected. We just lock them in houses. People think they are cursed. They are serving some punishments done by themselves and perhaps their ancestors. But if you could have so many of them that side in hundreds plus, it's a responsibility that really deserves an appreciation. We need so much sensitization this side to see that an helping hand is reached to children with that problem. But your efforts, really, it's a unique initiative that I'm thankful of.
Now you're in Kenya, correct?
Pardon?
Remind me, what part of Africa are you in?
I'm in East Africa.
East Africa? And which
East,
country? East Africa.
East Africa in Uganda.
You're in Uganda, excuse me. You're in Uganda. Okay. And
Yes, in Uganda.
that's right. I've been reaching out to many different teams in Africa recently, so forgive me. Um, and I want to definitely pass a message your way to anyone who's in need because um, as you saw in my message, I talk about children in particular because I work with children, in particular
Yeah.
young children who have delays, who have autism, who have challenging behaviors. But that led me to start my own charity, and in starting my own charity, it led me to do quite a bit of my own individual research. And
Mm,
lead poisoning is something I come across quite frequently in my field, and
mm,
I did not realize in America, being an American born man,
yeah.
I didn't realize how widespread lead poisoning is outside of America. We have a fair problem here. I wasn't aware of how widespread it was in the rest of the world, in various parts of Africa, in Southeast Asia, in places like Georgia, in Europe, in Colombia, Mexico, India, so on and so forth, China, and I found a plant. Right, and doing my research, I found this plant, and
Mm,
I just spoke on behalf of my organization to the World Health Organization's International Lead Poisoning Prevention Week um,
mm,
just a week ago
mm,
to discuss the research that has been done on this plant because this plant is showing the potential to reverse brain damage
yeah,
that has occurred from lead poisoning. And I reached out to the researchers on this study to make sure that what I was reading and how I was interpreting the reading was in fact
yeah,
correct. And
mm,
they assured me what I was reading was how they phrased it, and it wasn't hyperbole, it wasn't exaggeration, it was data based, scientific, meticulously performed study through reputable universities that are teamed with other reputable universities. The
mm,
issue is, right, and for me, I'll bring this back to why this leads me towards thinking about peace. The issue is for me that in America, the process of seeing plants as a potential remedy for anything is frowned upon. That's just for a number of different reasons. Some people may want to have their own theories towards that, but realistically speaking, from a scientific point of view,
mm,
they cannot guarantee if a plant grown in one part of America has the same exact compounds as a plant grown in another part of America because it can't factor for what fertilizer a farmer uses, what environmental soil the farmer is using, etc. And that makes sense. On the face of it, that makes sense.
yeah,
However, from a logistical point of view, I don't care.
mm, mm,
If there's a plant that
mm,
can help people and children and
mm,
and it's non-toxic and it's
yeah,
showing across thousands of research that has been done, at least in the last 4 years, there's been 4,100 different research studies done on this plant, and they are not finding adverse effects. Okay.
mm,
So we're looking at something that is as toxic as spinach, that is able
mm,
to reverse brain damage. And not just for lead poisoning, mind you. The research that's been done has been done for things like Alzheimer's type syndromes, symptoms, excuse me, Parkinson's type symptoms, Huntington's type symptoms. And I use the phrase type symptoms because they're manipulating mice to have these symptoms. They don't have the exact disease that a human has, but they have all
mm,
the same effects, right? I've learned to be very cautious how I use my language because I am not a doctor, and I have to be aware that when those who are not in a doctor position speak on scientific matters, doctors are very
mm,
quick to say, "Hold on, that's incorrect language.
mm,
That's not." And I've learned, okay, let me use proper language and uh,
mm,
let me come correct, so to speak.
yeah,
And so I come to you with this because lead poisoning does so much damage to the world and it affects the world's peace in a number of ways. And besides the brain damage and not allowing children to reach their full potential, it's been proven that lead exposure creates greater aggression. It creates a higher rate of juvenile delinquency. It creates a higher rate of violence because of the way
mm,
it interacts with the brain. So if we can solve for X, if we can find a way to reverse this damage that's happening to 40% of the kids on the planet, 800 million kids right now are affected by lead poisoning. If we can find
mm,
a remedy that grows out the ground for cheap, that's
mm,
non-toxic, we owe it to 800 million kids. We owe it to 440% of the children on this planet to look into
mm,
it because that, in my mind, is one of the paths to peace. There's many paths to peace, obviously, first and foremost through God. But then God has given us the brain and the capacity to say, well, what can we use through your bounty to make
mm,
this land more peaceful?
mm,
God loves problem solvers. God loves those who help
mm,
themselves, right? I
mm,
think a lot of times we hope that if we pray hard enough, God will zap us with a perfect answer or a perfect change. But it's often
mm,
simply clarity God provides, and it's on us to make a choice to say, will I go with this clarity or will I stay with old
mm,
behaviors and old thoughts and old patterns? I say we move forward and try to go with
yeah,
the clarity. So
mm,
I'm currently talking to different teams, one in Uganda, one in Kenya,
yeah,
which is why I said Kenya first. Again, I apologize. There were a conversation earlier today, and one in Mombasa and Benin, excuse me. So
mm,
those three teams I'm currently in talks with right now to get some research going. And since I'm not a scientist, I figured, well, what's the next best step? The next best step is a documentary because I can
mm,
still replicate the findings of a scientific study ethically
mm,
in the guise of it being a documentary. I can't use a lab setting, but I can provide children or volunteers with a non-toxic plant non-toxic plant supplement. It's essentially a supplement for
mm,
2 weeks and see if there's results. If there's not, we stop and say, okay, then that it is what it is. But if there are results, then the world can talk amongst themselves about, hey, do we want to provide this for our own kids? Whether the FDA or whatever international, national drug advisory committee says this is something that you're allowed to use, you're allowed to buy it. So if you're just
mm,
like vitamin C, just like iron, just like B12, um, you're allowed to buy it and you're allowed to take it for yourself if you want. And I want people to have the knowledge. I want people to have the knowledge. This is available. This is available, and this is a
mm,
potential. And until they
mm,
see it work, actually work on people, it's still just a theoretical. And that's my path to peace right now. That's my calling to push forward. I'll pause there because I could probably ramble on for quite some time, but I'll let you ask any questions you have or any questions off that topic as well.
I'm so happy for that resilience on such a remedy that can increase peace on this planet. And I was going through your YouTube session. I saw people commenting, asking you, and really, it was amazing. They are concerned, and really, I was also left wondering, yearning for a moment like this one to receive more clarifications about such a plant
Right,
that
right.
can really solve and reduce on the many sufferings and we make this world a better place to live in. I was looking forward to also attend more and also go back to the YouTube channels again and again to qualitatively understand. And now I've got a chance where you can explain and you can even share with me that presentation via my email to share with other colleagues about this
Absolutely.
new development. We've seen that it has happened, and for you have done your job, your peace building role. So it is us now to sit and consider that and understand and reason this and see that really we make this world full of peace. So I'm your student. I would like to learn more and I will organize my colleagues to go through and I know we shall engage you because we need this. In Africa, it is always hard for such developments to be put in place, depending on the lots of memory decay, mind stagnancy, unreasonableness, disengagement. People, we have high rates of illiteracy.
Mm,
Our education gives no room to such people venturing into such activities that require industrial study skills to persist. Yeah? Such charismatic skills, proper skills that really can help somebody develop knowledge because this nation is wanting, is crying, is yearning for knowledge. It is knowledge that we need. People are dying because of ignorance. Now that you have come, put this on table, you are alive. I know the network will grow bigger as you wish in each and every corner of this nation to have this knowledge. We shall get the knowledge and we shall share this knowledge. We shall disseminate it. We have universities this side. We have secondary schools, we have primary schools. We have communities, faith-based institutions that we will organize all this information. So I'm so happy and really you will share with me that presentation.
absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I'll do you one better. I'll include you in my documentary
yeah.
if you'll have me. So I'm starting a documentary, as I said earlier, and
Mm,
the goal is to show this plant works. I spoke with the lead researcher from the study
mm,
that I presented on. His name is Dr. Tomas Giarte. Brilliant,
mm,
brilliant man. He's been studying he's been studying the brain for the last 25 years. He's been in academia for the last 42 years.
Yeah.
He's frustrated. He's frustrated because right now he is writing the paper I discussed. The research that's discussed is from 4 years ago, from 2018.
Yeah.
He is right now writing a grant to the National Institute of Health to do further research again on mice, feeding them this plant compound because before they actually injected it, and this compound's available if you eat it as well or ingest it.
Mm,
And he told me the timeline right now of getting funding for this study would
mm,
take him to the end of 2023. He would not get money for this. The funding wouldn't arrive until the earliest about December, November, December next
mm,
year. And in
yeah.
my head, I keep thinking that's too long to wait. That's kids who are suffering. That's families that are watching your child suffer every single day for a full year when it's possible to provide peace faster. And for me, if we're able to make peace faster, why not?
Mm,
Um, his study needs 800,000 to $1 million to happen. My documentary does not need that much. My documentary needs, honestly, I would ideally be happy to have 10 volunteers who
mm,
receive this compound for it
mm,
just takes 2 weeks. That's the thing. My goal is to replicate the research, and I provide families with the compound. Its technical name is 7,8 dehydroxyflavone. That's the name of the study. It's a very
mm,
technical name that's named for the specific molecule. I like to call it
mm,
vitamin T because
mm,
its other name is tropoflavin. So a
mm,
vitamin T, I think, is easier for people to digest
mm, mm,
than a bunch of numbers and fancy sounding molecule names. But if a child gets vitamin T 3 times a day, a very small dose, they within 2 weeks, 15 days was a study. They did it for 15 days and they saw a complete reversal of the
mm,
function of the brain that was damaged. And this is without removing lead. That's what I found so interesting. It didn't remove any lead at all. So lead was still there, but this compound helped the brain to still rewire itself despite the presence of a poison. And if we're able to replicate this in 10 kids, or if 10 kids are given this compound, then we have a percentage, right? If we give 10
mm,
kids this compound and 7 of them show the ability to communicate clearer, to
mm,
dress themselves, to feed themselves better, to whatever issues they are currently having because of cognitive delays, because of the brain damage, if there's a notable difference, then we have a baseline to show the rest of the world, hey,
mm,
here's something that we all need to look at, that we all need to consider doing more studies on with people, not just
mm,
mice. Because if you do it with mice forever, the argument can always be said, well, mice and people are different. We know that. We also know this compound is non-toxic. I personally have taken this compound myself, and it only has helped my cognition. So I am someone who can
mm,
speak with full confidence firsthand to say this is safe. Um, I just want, and I'm just antsy for the progress. I'm antsy for the
mm,
progress because while a year from now he's gonna get the funding and he'll start a study which may take another year to finish,
mm,
which means that by 2024 it's published, right?
mm,
And then that's basis for him to be able to start another study on humans. We're talking 2-3 years before this becomes popular knowledge, but a
mm,
documentary can be done in 2-3 months. Again, I only need two
mm,
weeks for someone to take this and we see results, and from there we can spread the word. Um,
mm,
and it's interesting. I never used the word that much when I was younger, but as I've gotten older, I understand what a calling is, and I truly do
mm,
feel called to to share this with the world. I'm talking to you 7 hours away from New York
mm,
City to Uganda.
mm,
We're having this
yeah.
conversation right now
Mm,
to discuss how the world can literally change within 1 month. 1 month.
mm,
And that's not
mm,
hyperbole. If the
mm,
world has provided this plant and it's cheap, it grows, it's hardy, it's easy to grow, it's a
mm,
subtropical flower it comes from. It's
mm,
progress that we can see on an
mm,
unseen level. So again, I'll pause there because as I said, I can ramble. I'm a big fan of this, but uh, I'm excited. I'm certainly
mm,
excited. And
mm,
I guess the goal, what I'm saying to you is, I'm going to share that YouTube video with you. And what I'd like
mm,
for you to do is ask around people that you know, any families that you personally know that have been affected by lead exposure, lead poisoning, that
mm,
are willing to are willing to hope. are willing to try something that can give them another opportunity, another chance at life. Because I need
mm,
volunteers. I need volunteers.
mm, mm. So that is great. Um, that is great. To be part of the team to look for even the volunteers and to spread this message to make sure that I engage in making this plant's importance known to this world within the shortest time possible. I'll do that.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you, Ronald.
I will do
Thank you,
that.
Ronald. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ronald. And what
I'll
else can I
do
do for you?
that. Yes.
What else can I do for you?
Um, to this matter, for the knowledge sharing, we have agreed we are going to do so. And just to receive always your guidance as I take on this responsibility, this side. Yeah,
Sounds good.
yes, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. It's a new venture to look into as we try to heal the planet.
Yes. Yes.
We need to heal the planet.
I love that.
Yes, to do so. Maybe on my side, the way we have been also trying to do peace, there is no way we can do without venturing into this education system of ours. The so increasing knowledge gaps whose source is not known. We don't know whether they are scientific causes or artificial, a lot of forgetfulness, people forget
Right.
so much. Why don't care attitude?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard
Yeah.
today, and you don't know why. And this is so.
Yeah. It's tricky. It's
Mm,
unfortunate and it's tricky because I don't think people who carry that whatever attitude
mm,
realize the cost. And the cost isn't immediate, but the cost always
mm,
comes. The cost always comes.
mm. Domestic violence, somebody doing something fast that would have been done maybe last. People are just not stable. Their brains, we don't know. And the hope is now in this lead poisoning treatment to see. Yeah, these are challenges affecting us. Children going to schools, they are taught, they attend lessons, the performance remains poor. No one knows the cause. Is the teacher the one who is bad, not performing, or this child?
It's a good question. It's a good question to ask. It's easy to blame the child. It's trickier to blame the teacher, right?
Yes. The
You know,
brain damages, because some damages are not physically seen.
and that's the
Heart.
thing. I suspect that, and I tell my wife this. I
Mm,
suspect that we all have a little something in our system because we're
mm,
exposed to so much. We're exposed to so much pollution. We're
mm,
exposed to so much um, small trace amounts of toxins in our food, in our
mm,
water,
mm,
that on
mm,
the face of it, it seems innocuous, it seems harmless. And one can argue that if I open my tap in the morning and I pour myself a cup of water, there is
mm,
going to be some toxins from the very first draw every
mm,
morning. And one could say, well,
mm,
that's not enough to really cause any damage, Chris.
mm,
Correct. But how does that build up every single day for 10,
mm,
20, 30 years has not been
mm,
studied. That answer we
mm,
don't scientifically have. We don't have an answer to cumulative. To give you an example, my friend Rich, he lives in a
mm,
very affluent part of Brooklyn. Okay, he
mm.
lives in he
Yeah.
lives on the 11th floor of a very nice co-op building.
Mm,
And this place, you need money to own a co-op there, and he actually owns two essentially because he knocked the wall down from his neighbors. And
mm,
despite this, he says if he opens his window on the 11th floor,
mm,
he opens a window and takes a paper towel and wipes the window every day.
mm,
That paper
mm,
towel is black. It's
mm,
black with soot from the bus that's across the street from all the fumes from the cars that pass by, and he's on the 11th floor. And imagine you living on the first floor or the second floor. Your windows open, you breathe that in. You're not thinking anything of it. It's called particulate matter. Air pollution, particulate matter, PM 2.5, has a lot of different not so good particles in there, from toxic heavy metals to etc. But we breathe these in, we think nothing of it. And the problem is, as an adult, if we suffer brain damage as an adult, it's not something that we really notice. Okay, we might say, "Oh, where'd I put my keys? Oh, what time was that appointment? Oh, where'd I?" And we think nothing of it. Like it's a tiny moment where you say, "Oh, I forgot this," whatever. But kind of goes back to that whatever mentality, right? But as a child, if a child is suffering brain damage, what happens to them when their memory is interrupted? They're unable to build the foundations of learning that is required for attention and memory, and their life goes on and on and on. And people see them as being inattentive or disruptive in school, or they'll call the kid bad. That's just a bad kid. They're not a bad kid. That's not a bad child. They just learned that it's very difficult to do what good kids are supposed to do. They don't know why, and they resort to different behaviors to get some sort of form of attention or connection or access to things that they want. And it's on us as adults to evolve how we interact with those we consider bad, while they go through their process of healing, if they've been exposed to things that are making their brain not work at the most ideal. I think a lot of this evolution and peace comes down to how we treat our brain. And I mean physically treat our brain health. There's so many toxins that we're exposed to that interrupt our ability to properly think, to properly remember, to properly empathize with others. And I think empathy is one of the highest forms of thinking, because it requires you to think outside of yourself and your immediate needs and the things that we selfishly desire. When you're able to look at someone else and say, even though this person can offer me nothing, I'm going to give of myself because they need that. That's an evolved thought. That's an evolved way of being. That's God thinking. That's what all the prophets have asked us to do and be. They asked us to be better people for each other, So, it is a challenge that we have ahead of ourselves, from Uganda to NYC, but and everywhere in between. But it's doable because in the end, if anyone listening who has faith and believes in God, we all know God wins. In the end, God wins. And just as we have faith in God, we need to have faith that God has faith in us. And God made us not just to get this far. God has plans for us to get further. And need to trust. Peace is coming. Peace comes.
Yeah, peace comes. So we have to really have that faith.
Yes.
And we work to see it happening. Because I don't know your faith. On the cross, Jesus was crucified. He's one Savior who was crucified.
I got Jesus right back here in the painting. I'm not sure if you can see him.
Yes. Now, very many people had neglected him, were against him, but today millions and millions testify against his goodness. All those challenges he went through, all sorts of evils that were done to him, are almost similar to what happens today. You come up with research and heavenly sent knowledge for the planet. Many find it hard to believe. They are instead against this and this, fighting here and there. But your resilience and the faith in what you discovered, and in asking God to enable you link up with those souls that really this message is for them, to add value onto it, and we disseminate and we reach out. So this is great. This side, we have also cases of mind stagnancy. Again, among children and elders, mind stagnancy. All of those, I think, emanate from the brain damages. Mind stagnance, somebody is not picking up, told this and that, the brain is not functioning. Lily, do you have any linkage of that with our subject
Do I
matter?
have, do I have links to what? I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Mind stagnance.
To what?
Mind stagnancy.
Oh, mind
Does it?
stagnance.
Yes.
So the mind is like a muscle. The brain is like a muscle. Um, and I go through the anatomy of learning in the
Mm,
WHO presentation that I'm going to email you. And
mm,
the what happens is if you don't use it, you don't really lose it, but it becomes weaker. So the more you exercise your mind, the more you're disciplined, the more you're able to have greater strength across the board, right?
mm,
So if you intend to make your mind sharper every single day in small
mm,
ways that are unrelated to different parts of your brain, because your
mm,
brain is being activated, your other parts of your brain are also going to grow.
mm,
It's easy to become stagnant when you give in to watching TV at the end of the day for
mm,
X amount of hours, when you give into playing video games,
mm,
um, when you give into a life that's not
mm,
to be judgmental, but when you allow yourself to live a life that lacks discipline, there's
mm,
consequences. Just
mm,
like there's good consequences if you live a life of discipline. And that's not to say that you need to be perfect, but
mm,
it is good to strive. It is good to
mm,
strive. No matter what chapter of your
mm,
life you're in, it's good to strive. It's good to have some
mm,
goal. It's good to have some desire for growth.
mm,
I've heard a motivational speaker that's very popular, internationally known, Anthony Robbins. He says
mm,
happiness equals progress, and I agree. There's
mm,
other definitions I would throw in there as well, but whenever we make progress, we do
mm,
feel, we give ourselves rooms to feel proud of ourselves. Um,
mm,
and you can feel proud of yourself for beating a video game, but that's a different type of pride than you'd feel for running a
mm,
marathon. That's a different kind of
mm,
pride you have for writing a book. That's a different kind of pride you have for
mm,
um, mentoring a child. And there's different ways that everyone can strive within their own individual box that will make them feel
mm,
better about themselves. And the
mm,
more you stretch your abilities,
mm,
I truly believe the more is offered, both from God and from
mm,
man. You're going to see more opportunities. um,
mm,
the reason I'm talking to you today is because I'm a man who's learned to um, keep using what I have, leverage it, stretch it, and see
mm,
how else can I develop this so I can be more helpful. I didn't
mm,
expect to be having a conversation with the
mm,
podcast host in Uganda 2 years
mm,
ago discussing this,
mm,
but I kept pushing forward. I didn't expect to be
mm,
giving a presentation to the World Health Organization 3 years ago, but I kept
mm,
pushing forward. I kept striving. And
mm,
some people might say, oh, that sounds like work. It is. It is
mm,
work. And
mm.
life is work, one way or
Yeah.
another. There's
Mm,
two pains that everyone is guaranteed to face, no matter who you
mm,
are, no matter what. There's the pain of discipline or the pain of
mm,
regret, and you can't
mm,
escape from the two. So it's your
mm,
choice. You can say, I'm gonna deal with this pain of discipline because I know
mm,
in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now that the
mm,
consequences are great, the benefits will be great. I like that bounty that I'll get from working
mm,
out every day or from practicing my musical
mm,
instrument every day or reading a different book every week, whatever it may
mm,
be. There's going to be a benefit to that striving.
mm,
Um, and the pain of regret obviously comes, we've all faced it in different ways, from not
mm,
being disciplined. Oh, I wish I was more disciplined in that relationship. I wish I was more
mm,
disciplined in with my money. I wish I was more disciplined with fill in the blank. It hurts.
mm,
It hurts. And while
mm,
when you were being undisciplined, it might have been capricious and fun or carefree. When
mm,
when when the check is due, it always
mm,
comes and it hurts.
mm,
So you know, if someone is hearing this and they say, "I don't want to have to work," listen. The pain of
mm,
discipline wanes. It goes away after a couple of days. It doesn't
mm,
hurt forever.
mm, mm,
And it makes
mm,
things easier. Ultimately, the more you strive, the more you build yourself, the more you
mm,
develop yourself as a person, the
mm,
easier life is. And that's just fact. That's law of
mm,
nature for everything, for humans, for creatures. If you work to make your life better, your life gets better. That doesn't mean it's easy at first, but it means if you're disciplined, which means you're consistent, you keep at it. You don't quit when it's hard. You don't quit when you get an immediate rejection or failure. You say, I'm going to do this no matter what, and you pay attention. Don't just be reckless. You pay attention. So if you do the same thing over and over again, it doesn't work. Ask yourself if there's something you can tweak. Ask yourself if there's something that you're not quite seeing. Be honest about your blind spots. Everyone has blind spots. If we're not honest about that, that's when we get frustrated and we suffer regret. But the mind stagnance it's not one that you want to sleep on, because if one lets their mind be stagnant for too long, then when they hit old age, they find they lose their mind. They lose their memories, they lose their sense of who they were. And that's one of the saddest ways for life to fade, honestly. You are your mind. You are your mind. And so you get to choose who you are with that mind of yours. So, this plan does promote promise for helping people develop their mind a little easier, because it does make it easier to learn. Whether someone has lead poisoning or not, the compound helps the brain be more plastic. Neuroplasticity is increased, and your cognition is easier. Your memory is a little bit more fluid. It's just a brain boosting compound, man. That's why I'm so happy to share this information with anyone who's willing to listen. I think the whole world could use a little bit more brain power. I think that'll ultimately make life a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, on my side, the way I'm building peace, I mobilize these rural communities, especially children who have dropped out of schools. Children, there is abject poverty, which has almost failed most of our programs to yield the results. High illiteracy levels due to abject poverty, housing facilities. Some children are homeless. Those who go to school don't complete. These are child-headed households. So I embarked on a program of peace building through writing. I said, how can I mobilize these children into something that can easily connect us with the outside world? Then peace building through writing, no matter the level at which one stopped, I mobilized them. I trained them in knowledge publication skills themselves to develop content themselves. And we develop materials, and if you are in primary or secondary. And the funny bit of it, these kids are consistent, love the program, and they are performing. Like this at the universities, who claim to be lazy, having no time, they are busy, things of that kind. So now these materials that children have developed themselves, the act of changing their mindset into something, sticking on it positively with hope, is peacemaking, is peace building. And we want these very materials that the children in the community have developed to launch the first community library, peace building community library in our community. And we got some land. Now we need construction immediately start. We need a library. Even if we start with the 2 to 3 rooms for this peace building library in the community, to give hope to the children to see the efforts, even if they haven't completed the school, but have engaged in a community venture that will later attract so many souls to come and inspire others, would really be a source of peace to us. So how could you be of help to that? Peace building through writing. How could you be of help to that?
Good question. I'd have to follow with the first question. So, what exactly are they writing about?
We are building peace through
Mhm.
writing,
Mhm.
mobilizing community children. They have developed knowledge materials that help in fighting memory decay, mind stagnancy, in providing a quick solutions mindset to all
Okay.
those in school and out of school. Simple learning materials that require just production to be printed in thousands.
How old are
Then,
the children?
this side we engage in classes,
Mhm.
primary 3 up to secondary, which is high school that side of yours in America.
Okay.
Ours starts from primary, basic, those with basic education. But we have those who are not schooling, who have dropped out at the primary level. Our primary level isn't considered at all.
Mm.
You can't say, I'm looking for this piece of work. I have a certificate on primary living. It isn't considered. But there are those children you mobilize,
Mhm.
you look at a problem, you devise a solution together, you embark on it. Then they have done things that we really want to equip in our community library.
I like it. So, how I would contribute, I'd offer a competition, but or a goal, because kids are creative, and if you let kids if you take the reins off kids to be
Mm,
creative, sometimes they can solve problems that as adults we've already put blinders on and say, no, it can't be done this way, it
mm,
can't be done this way. But a
mm,
child doesn't have those blinders yet, so they might see a solution.
mm,
I would ask them to pick a world problem and ask, if you were if you had unlimited resources,
mm,
how would you solve this problem? And ask them to be very specific. So not fantastical, not like they're magic or not like they're uh,
mm,
some sort of superhero. But
mm,
if they were Elon Musk, if they had $140 billion and they wanted
mm,
to solve a problem without simply throwing money at, not simply like I would pay someone to do, no, like
mm,
what exactly would you do? How, if you want to solve hunger, for example,
mm,
talk to me from the seed. Who are you
mm,
giving seeds to? Who are you paying to
mm,
grow it? What scale? How many people? Get the numbers, make them use specific numbers. If you want to solve a housing problem, how would you solve it? Use specific numbers. How many houses would you build? How much would you need? What's the exact amount of, like, how much would you need? That's what I would give them. I'd give them I give them a task to find a way to create some
mm,
problem solving question that needs to be answered with great
mm,
specificity. So they have to do research. So they have to do a
mm,
little research on, okay, well, how much would it cost to build 10,000 houses? Well, how much would it cost to construct the hydroelectric dam? Well, how much would it cost to, okay, then this is what, and then who would you reach out to? Who would be in charge of that? How would I design a team? Have them start to think in that kind of big picture scheme and write about it.
mm,
If they had no hurdles, if no matter what they couldn't fail, what would they
mm,
do? I'd love to hear what the kids would write about if they knew in their head as they're writing, I can't fail. So this is what I do and this is how I go about it.
mm.
Might have some interesting answers. I'm curious what problems they individually choose to solve too.
Oh, thank you so much. Then I'll get to you to that. We'll share via emails about about that. You shall
Hmm,
share by email when you text me the other presentations, and I
absolutely.
get your email.
Hmm.
Then we do so. Then I will also share with you more about that, possibly when I write
Good.
uh, in that advice you've made. Yeah. So apart from the research, have you made some other publications?
I have. So I've recently wrote a book,
Yeah.
and thank you for asking. It's called Help Your Toddler Meet Their Milestones 101 Behavior Hacks. And the goal for that is to help parents who have children between birth and three.
With the
Um,
parenting knowledge, confidence.
Yeah. I want to basically build the confidence of parents. I work with
Mm,
kids with autism and delays for the last 16 years. And
mm,
during COVID, I had more of an opportunity to work with parents in particular to help them
mm,
tweak what they do at home. And I started to
mm,
realize um, that this is a part of the chain, it's a link in the chain that's missing in terms of how we
mm,
operate as teachers. And then
mm,
having my own daughter during COVID made me also realize that the things
mm,
that I do with kids with autism works for every kid. And the kids who don't have delays will just learn things faster. Kids who do have delays will learn things faster, as long as the parents are more confident in what they can do. And when I say more confident, I mean knowing that there's a proper way to respond to challenging behavior and
mm,
there's a benefit to it and there's a specific path that requires both the proper phrasing, certain
mm,
formulas you can use in terms of what you say to a child that registers
mm,
to 2-year-olds universally,
mm,
and what you
mm,
physically can do physically can
mm,
do and that's not to be confused with disciplining a child. That's not to be confused with spanking or in any way harming a child, but in how
mm,
you physically can guide a child to learn
mm,
something, as opposed to hoping they figure it out, as opposed to sitting
mm,
back and saying, well, what can I do? This is how the child's acting.
mm,
No, there is something you can do. Sometimes you need to take their hand in
mm,
your hand and pick up a puzzle piece and put that puzzle piece where it belongs, so they can
mm,
actually visualize their hand putting it where it belongs and now making the connection. Oh, this is
mm,
how I get this done. And
mm,
sometimes it means if they're having a tantrum, that you are okay as a parent to physically, kindly and gently pick them up and let them know
mm,
this isn't what we're doing right now. We're going here. Sometimes it's okay
mm,
to redirect the child physically,
mm,
as opposed to having a hands off. I don't know what to do. I don't want to hurt this child, so I can't put my hands anywhere near them. It's not about,
mm,
and again, it's not about discipline. And you're always going to operate from a place of kindness and compassion when you're dealing with a child or people in
mm,
general, preferably.
mm,
However, from my point of view, at least in New York, where I'm, born, bred, and raised, I see parents,
mm,
um, they see their child have a challenging behavior and they just sit back and wait for it to be done because they don't know what to do. And unfortunately, while it comes from a place of love, the child isn't learning how to be. They're learning that this is the normal. They're learning that when I act like this, no one's stopping me. This is acceptable. This is normal. And it's
mm,
on us as parents to be guides. Parents are the authority of the household. Parents need to be comfortable and confident stepping into that role of authority. And some parents aren't. Some people just aren't comfortable being authorities. And it's, again, that's
mm,
not to say in a sense where you have to come down as punitive and
mm,
punishing and commanding and domineering. That's an
mm,
old paradigm. That's an old mentality that served mankind generations ago. It doesn't serve
mm,
us anymore because we've evolved a bit to be more emotionally intact and more empathetic and sympathetic. And
mm,
at the same time, that's not to say that you're a total squish and you let yourself get run over by your child. There is a middle ground. There
mm,
is a time when you let your kid direct you when you're doing play, for example. My daughter this
mm,
morning said, Daddy, you sit here, crisscross applesauce. I said, yes, I will sit here.
mm,
I will follow your lead. This is great. What do you want to do? Oh, okay, I'm wearing this now. This is my coat. A lovely coat. Thank you so much. And you engage in that pretend play. And there's
mm,
sometimes when if you have to drop the kid off at school or you need to go somewhere and the clock is ticking and they're dawdling and they're taking too long, you have to be an adult and say, time to go. I
mm,
am not negotiating with you anymore. I've asked you
mm,
twice. We don't ask 3 times in this household.
mm,
Here we go. I love you. You need to listen.
mm,
This is doing good listening. And the book
mm,
gives parents the strategies of how to toe that line between being kind and being firm,
mm,
across over 101 behaviors, literally
mm,
throughout the book. And that also help a child learn how to speak, how to communicate, how to decrease their
mm,
tantrums, how to decrease picky eating, how to socialize, how to be less aggressive,
mm,
and more. So if any parent
mm,
has a child on the way, buy my book. If any parent has a child that's already here and they're curious, how do I get through these terrible twos? How do I get through these tantrums?
mm,
Buy my book. You'll see some advice in there that's all evidence-based on the science from
mm,
applied behavior analysis, which is my classical discipline, which I've been
mm,
practicing for the last 16 years. So
mm,
it's not simply my opinion. The things that I offer
mm,
you are scientific, data-driven
mm,
techniques
mm,
that I'm offering to
mm.
parents as hacks by using clear, plain, everyday language.
mm. Now that is very great. Now, do you
Thank you.
humbly uh, organize a message for children? Um, in Uganda, children are sitting exams, holidays are soon. Now, could you organize a message for these children coming in holidays that really I can share with them? A message written uh, with all the information you see fit, the child upbringing, the nurturing, how really they should conduct themselves, they could behave, uh, motivating them to be focused on that, that really will be shared to them from Chris Lake. And also a message to parents. You know, this side, parents say, seems not to care so much about children. They claim having no time. They are looking for survival, and children are left astray. Child may take a week without uh, getting a chance to interface with a parent, those who have them. But there are moments where you can have a chance and meet some of the parents, like a church. After a service, you can
Mhm.
have some few minutes to chat with them, to
Mm.
have a message also for these parents or elders from Chris Lake as an expert who has worked with children for many years. A package that really can remind these parents of their responsibility and what they need to do. Basically, the basics. Just by a
Absolutely.
mail, you organize something. Me, I'll print it out. I will share it. It will be discussed.
Certainly, I can certainly print it out. I can also speak a bit to that now for the children. I
Yeah.
think the important thing to recognize for all kids who are listening is
Mm,
there's only two things the world cannot take away from you.
mm,
One is education, and the
mm,
other is travel. These are
mm.
experiences that stay with you forever. Um,
Education.
mhm, mhm.
Mm,
And the value of an education is one that only increases over time. And while
mm,
it may seem like work right now, and it may seem
mm,
um,
mm,
like it's not as much fun as you might want to have,
mm,
the more educated you are, the more fun you can have throughout your entire
mm,
life. Okay.
mm.
I have
Yeah,
friends across a wide spectrum, and
yeah.
some of my friends didn't finish college, some of my friends did. And
Mm,
I can promise
mm,
you, the ones who finished college, the ones who went to college at my age now, I'm 40 years old, they
yeah.
are living much more comfortably than those who did not. The ones who did not finish college or did not go to college, they tend to struggle every single day and have for the last 2 decades, for the last 20 years. I've seen them struggle versus the ones
Mm,
who valued education and really said, how far can I take this? Um, it is one of the most valuable things on earth. It is something that is not available to everyone. It is a privilege. And with it, you can work miracles for yourself, for your family, for your future.
mm,
Value your education. It may not be fun, but I promise you, it is worth it.
mm.
It is worth it. And for
Education.
parents, education,
Mm,
it's one of the few things no one could take away from you, your intelligence, your knowledge. And we had a beautiful poet, writer in America, Maya Angelou. She said, education is spendable currency depending on the market. So the more you know, the more value you have. And the more value you have, the more value
mm,
you will be given.
mm,
Intend to make yourself a valuable life. Intend to make
mm,
yourself someone who has valuable knowledge. Don't just aim to be
mm,
cool. Don't just aim to be popular or sexy or funny.
mm,
That might serve you right now. That might serve you right now. But
mm,
again, you're stealing from your future. Don't steal from your future so you can have a few laughs right now. Don't steal from your future so you can feel
mm,
good right now. Education is one of the most valuable things on earth. Cherish it.
mm,
To the
mm,
parents who are
mm,
working and don't have as much time as they like with their kids,
mm,
first and foremost, forgive yourself because you're probably doing the best you can. And
mm,
as Ronald asked me, he's not sure what faith I am. I was raised in Catholic faith, and
mm,
the best gift Jesus gave us, whether you're Catholic or Christian or not,
mm,
the best gift, in my opinion, that Jesus Christ gave the world was the concept of forgiveness. This man came to this planet and
mm,
spoke this word, lived this word
mm,
as no other man ever did. And without
mm,
Jesus, no matter what your religious point of view is, we didn't have much of a concept of forgiveness. So, parents out
mm,
there, you're working your tail off for your kids and you don't find you have
mm,
enough time to connect with your kids, please
mm,
give yourself space to forgive yourself. Be honest and say, well, I'm trying. And when you do have time,
mm,
make it count. Ask them about their friends. Care about their friends. Because for kids, that's the most important part of their universe, whether we like it or not as parents. Um, find ways to do something they like. If you know there's something that
mm,
they actually like to do, find a day
mm,
per season, per year. Say, you know what? We're going to go here and you're going to have a great day because we know this is going to mean a lot to you. Not just on Christmas, not just on their
mm,
birthday.
mm,
Do something out of the blue to really make them feel
mm,
that they're valuable to you.
mm,
Um, Gratitude. Just be sure to show your kids gratitude, even if they're not reflecting it back, because there's going to be a period where they just don't.
mm, mm,
But you still want to be that
mm,
firm point of love and gratitude and compassion that they can always turn to, no matter what. I tell my daughter this, and I mean it. I tell her I'm going to love you no matter what, and she's 2.
mm,
But I want to start at
mm,
2. That
mm,
mentality to be in her head that she knows no matter what, I will always
mm,
love.
mm,
And those are my 2 messages.
mm. That is great. Now, I humbly request you that when you get time, you pen them down.
I will.
Yes, pen them down. I'll do the needful to reach the message to the to those designed to receive it and to be great. You shall print it and then share in parents groups, child groups, those are in churches, markets, market vendors, parents who unite themselves there and see really that they can get this knowledge. Parents, when you start paying school fees, you cease to receive knowledge yourself. All the struggles you want your child to receive. But for you, no value is added onto you. You say, now I didn't go to school, I need my daughter to receive education. So you forget totally this component you've said, you're adding value onto yourself to make yourself valuable. So you see, now such sessions where you can sacrifice time, send a note to them, remind them and instill hope and peace. Oh, I also matter to this nation. Without me, the planet can't be peaceful. But with my presence, with me having knowledge of this kind, the planet receives peace. So I'll deliver that when we get time. Just try to organize something in easily understood. Yeah, to them. Because we are not English speaking people. Yeah, I will deliver the message to that. I'm so grateful
Thank
to
you.
hear that. So, how do you now, uh, in New York and the entire nation of America, when you go back on this autism issue, what percentage of children really are victims?
So right now in America, um, the most recent numbers find that 1 in 44 kids have autism, which is an increase from
100?
one out of 44 kids. For every 44 kids, one of them will
Mm,
have autism, which is an
mm,
increase from the year before and the year before and the year before. Um,
mm,
in total, in America, 1 in 6 kids, so roughly 16%,
mm,
16% of children have some form of mental, um, some
mm,
diagnosis. So whether it's
mm,
mental disabilities, developmental delays, 1 in 6 children are facing some sort of challenges. Um,
mm,
and it's a fight. It's a fight. I do what I can in New York. I'm just one man. I
mm,
I reach out to as many people as I can, and
mm,
the blessings fall where they do. But this plant is what gives me the most hope, because if I can spread the knowledge to others, then they can spread the knowledge as well, and I don't have to do all the heavy lifting. Um,
mm,
and I can get people like you to use your own megaphone to spread the word,
mm,
and help
mm,
those who this can affect. It doesn't
mm,
work for everyone. It will not work for
mm,
everyone, but it will work for some. And
mm,
again, I truly believe the path to peace involves
mm,
healthier brain, cleaner
mm,
brain, healthier brain, so that we can
mm,
make the choices we need to lift ourselves up.
mm, mm. Okay, that is great. I'm also learning. I'm becoming valuable with information to gain more confidence.
Good, good,
Yeah, yeah. To
good.
share the cause that really I have qualitatively understood, and also look around my community to see the victims and really how we can team up
Hmm.
to have that peace concept, peace building concept. And I know it will work out. We shall make sure that really we achieve the results. Yeah, that one will be done. It's a done deal. Yeah. So how is your how are you now bringing on board the government
How
of
am I
the
bringing
United
one more
States?
time? How am I bringing what?
The government on board. Have you some governmental officials, experts that really have
So I
showed?
I have to be wise. I work with legislators now on different issues. You spoke of domestic violence earlier. One of the branches of my charity actually works with sexual violence in particular,
Mm,
prevention. And
mm,
I also work to change lead poisoning laws in terms of how we not just diagnose, but how we test. So the number that we look for, it's 5 micrograms per deciliter when we test the blood. That's too high.
mm,
No amount of blood is good. And so
mm,
I've been reaching out to legislators, and I wrote out to legislators about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, to get it dropped from
mm,
10 to 5, because at the time
mm,
5 was a CDC standard. So I said, hey, let's match the CDC standard, and it took three
mm,
years, but they did. After
mm,
that, CDC changed to 3.5 micrograms per deciliter, and so I'm not writing them to bring it down again. And so that
mm,
hopefully it won't take 3 years, but if next year it passes, that'll work for me. Um, so that's one fight I can take, and I have to be cautious because, as I said, I'm just one man. I just happen to have a lot of energy, and I'm very good at reaching out to people.
mm,
So I use those to leverage my position to make things happen as best I can.
mm,
And in terms of this plant, my
mm,
goal is, well, I've spoken with Dr. Ruth Etzel, who was the former head of the Office of Children's Health Protection of the EPA,
mm,
and I've spoken with other children lead poisoning experts.
mm,
The FDA is not going to budge, right? Because they
mm,
don't, their stance right now is that a plant can't be medicine, and
mm,
or rather, a plant can't be a drug, and it
mm,
can't be listed. It can't even on the bottle say intended to prevent,
mm,
treat, or cure any disease. If you
mm,
buy a bottle of any supplement, from calcium to vitamin C to B12, most of these are plant derived. Okay.
mm,
And just like that complex word 7,8 dehydroxyflavone, vitamin T,
mm,
um, they're molecules. They're they're
mm,
they're isolated molecules that are found within different plants. Um,
mm,
and we recognize in science, ooh, this particular molecule is very good at preventing, fighting the common cold. If you get vitamin C, its
mm,
technical name is L-ascorbic acid. If you get that, your cold, the time you have a cold is shorter. Oh, if you have
mm,
migraines and you get vitamin B2, that helps decrease it. Oh, if you get quercetin, this is good for so on and so forth.
mm,
But if you buy the bottle, it still will say on every single bottle, even prenatal vitamins, okay, which doctors recommend for pregnant women. On a bottle of prenatal vitamins, which doctors will say you are pregnant, you should take this. It says this has not been evaluated by the FDA. This is not intended to treat, prevent, or cure any illness. Even though we all know it is good for your health, that is the required legal labeling on every single bottle. I'm okay with that. My goal is to make vitamin T something that doctors, just as they'd give for a pregnant woman, would give to someone who has lead poisoning. The bottle can say what it says. I just need this to get in people's hands so it can get in their heads so we can get up higher. So with the documentary, again, my goal is to increase awareness. My goal is to increase exposure. And after it's finished and I have a large enough sample size, I will disseminate this to as many people as possible so that steps can be taken towards bring it towards supplement status, bring it towards the supplement status, and then working with legislators to make it a required offering to those who have been exposed to X level of lead exposure so that we have it in paper. Because if anyone's listening and they are a advocate and they're an activist, you know, the thing I've learned the hard way in stepping into the realm of legal and logistics of creating laws is you have to know the paperwork. You got to look at the paperwork. And this kind of goes back to the education point where I tell kids it's valuable. Had I not let myself reach my level of education, then there's so much room to be sloppy. And then when you do come across a problem you want to solve, if you're sloppy about it, it goes nowhere. And that's a problem. When you want to change laws, when you want to make change, change laws. If you want to make change, change laws. If you want to change laws, understand lawmakers are not your enemies. They're people you need to speak to as people. You got to come correct. You got to do your homework, and you got to know exactly what law you want to introduce or change. You got to know the paperwork. You got to do your homework. You got to do your homework. So that's my long and short of it. Create a document, gain awareness, and then work towards having legislation created to be a viable supplement for those who are affected by lead poisoning.
That's encouraging. Now, have you ever traveled to Africa? Or how many countries have you journeyed to so far?
How many countries have I reached out to?
Visited.
So right now I've reached out to a team in Uganda. I've reached out to a team in Benin. They're on board. The team in Benin is on board.
Uganda?
Yes.
Uganda?
Yes.
Which year?
I'll tell you, yeah, right here. Hold on. And bear with me 1 second because my wife is checking on the status. Okay, there she is. She's good. But yes, Uganda. And I'll tell you exactly who, because I'm balancing a couple different teams. But Uganda, Kenya, and Benin, I've been in talks with. And
in the talks.
Yes. So Benin has agreed that they want to be part of the documentary. Uganda, I think it's a Western. I want to make sure I say this right though before I say anything. Yeah. Yep, it's the Western Media for Environmental Conservation. Are you familiar with them?
Not yet.
They go by the otherwise known as WEMICO. This individual, Peter Akuzibi, he's open to discussing more. So we're setting up a date where we can follow up to discuss the details. But the team in Benin, they're willing to actually work to get some volunteers, and then the team in Mombasa, I'm waiting for a response from. And then I'm also today I'm going to be reaching out to teams in Colombia, teams in Bangladesh, India, and Georgia, because you know it's a worldwide issue. I'm just reaching out to places that I've seen in the International Lead Poison Prevention Week that are most responsive to my postings, and I say, okay, let me target you. You seem to care. Let me start with you, and then I can spread out to other people who might care as well. I reached out to people in America as well, some individuals, but there's you know, again, they're waiting for FDA anything, so it's a little slower here than it is in other places. So I figured, let me go where the need is greatest. Start there.
Okay, so let us keep waiting. I'm looking forward to receiving the documents that you have upgraded, and then simply get started with the course. Yeah, I'm
I will keep
looking
you
forward
posted.
to it.
I will
Yeah.
certainly keep you posted, Ronald.
Yeah. I've seen is that microphone the one you use while podcasting?
Yes, this is the one I use when I'm podcasting. Yeah, it's but I realized that when I use this, I can't also use my AirPods. So that's why at first I think we were having some technical difficulties. But
How
that's
can how can I get one?
I got one on Amazon. I'll send you the link. I got one on Amazon. It's Zeal Sound, and it was I think it was 25 USD, something like that. I'll send you the link. Yeah, I liked it. It helps me knock out background noise when I have my daughter and my baby are home and they're doing this, that, and the other thing.
So I want also to organize a podcasting a show only one time, but I haven't done one. But I would like to
Okay.
I haven't done any podcasting. I think you will guide me also how to set up a show.
Sure, we can talk more about that. We can talk more about that in the week to come, and make some strategies together. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, you guide me.
I'll
Next
guide as
time
best I can. Yeah.
I need to learn. Then I also get started. Yeah. Yes, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you about that.
So we'll be talking for a minute, brother. We'll talk for a minute. I'll share a load. There's from what I understand, it's not too difficult. It's work, everything is work, but not too difficult. I unfortunately have to give the sad news. I have to wrap up in a little bit just because I have to tend to my wife and child. But I do have like one more minute for us to chat. And in the meanwhile, I will email you and give you information about this microphone as well as different ways to start a podcast, etc.
So which church do you go to? Where do you fellowship from?
What fellowship?
Yes, where do you fellowship from?
So originally it was St. Pius X in Plainview, Long Island. That was my original fellowship. It was a Catholic
fellowship,
church.
Catholic church. You're Catholic.
Originally Catholic, yes.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So that's nice.
Thank you, Ronald.
So you had not set the duration for our meeting. Yeah, we hadn't set, and where I am, I need to travel. It's dark.
Yeah, I see.
So could you try to kindly beef something that's really the action point?
Sure. Action point for your listeners. So, we talked about for the kids. For the kids, make sure you understand the value of education and that it is the tool to make your life into the paradise you desire. The more you know, the more you can do. Straight up. For parents, allow yourself room for forgiveness and gratitude. Allow yourself the space to show your children gratitude in meaningful ways and not specifically just on birthdays and not just on Christmas or other prescribed holidays that are on the calendar. Find an excuse to randomly show your child gratitude and care about their friends. Learn your kids' friends' names, understand what's going on with them. Learn to care about what your kids care about. Even if you don't really care about it. and as for the researchers, etc., reach out to Ronald and he'll get through to me in terms of this plant that reverses brain damage, because I'd like to work with as many people as possible to create a more peaceful planet. Again, I have strong faith in God, and I believe God has given us the clarity and the ability to make this world better. And I believe this plant is one of the ways. I really do.
Yeah, I'm happy for that, and we disseminate the information.
Will do.
What we need is you summarize those action points, you organize them in easy to understand language. and then the work goes on.
Will do. Will do.
Yes, that one be better, you know, for us. English is a second language.
Okay.
Nice. We do the job. We are
Okay.
yearning for knowledge. You know, we are unable to build the content. So we need you now, the content generators, to feed us, to brainwash us, you educate us, you
I don't want to
enlighten
brainwash.
us.
I don't want to brainwash, but I'll educate as best I can.
Yes,
I'll
yes.
teach and educate.
There are people who may be having some hint on something.
I want to brain
They are
heal.
not sure. So that you awaken us, you empower us.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
with the knowledge tool.
And I'll also
Then,
send you this. I'll also send you this interview because I'm recording this. So I'll send you the recording of this as well. Okay.
So then you send all that, and we do the needful. Yeah, we do the needful. I will also try to share with you about the other thing
Beautiful.
of the library stuff, just for
All right.
you. I will.
Beautiful. All right, we'll be in touch. I have to run now, unfortunately, but again, Ronald,
Yes,
thank you. Thank you so much for making time for me. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for your energy and your faith. Thank you.
Thank you. So you have my email?
Yes.
Yes, you have mine. So I'll get yours when you send. And I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful for this moment. Thank you so much for swiftly responding positively and organized. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Ronald. Enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Peace. Peace.
Yeah.